Oh no. Don't say that Donald Trump isn't the picture of health. Come on, man. He's doing absolutely great. He really, really is. I mean, just yesterday, he held a 3-hour televised cabinet meeting, and one after one was able to listen to the praise from his sycophantic appointees, right? It went absolutely great. Let's check in. Let's check in on Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking to Donald Trump about how great he's doing as commander in chief.
It never would have happened if you'd been president. But this war is going on, and the president is trying to end it, not because, listen, we got a million things to focus on in the world as a country, but he's the only leader in the world that can help end it. And that's why even as we speak to you now, Steve Witkoff is in Moscow trying to find a way to end this war, to save lives of 9,000 people, Mr. President, as you know, are dying every week. More people.
Guys, he's literally asleep. This is not the commander in chief. It's the commander in these. Now, you may say, Jennifer, you're just cherry picking. And I'll say, thank you for that comment. Because let's be clear, he slept through on and off the comments of several members of his cabinet. We just saw the Secretary of State praising him somehow, claiming that there would not be an attack on Ukraine by Moscow if Trump had been in office, which makes absolutely no sense because right now Trump is president and his whole team is sucking Putin's toes, especially Witkoff, who we now know, because the Wall Street Journal broke the news, is discussing post-war deals. We also know Witkoff has a long history working with Russian oligarchs. No wonder he was put in charge in ending this war and getting the spoils. But, of course, it wasn't just that. I wasn't cherry picking. Shall we listen to Scott Bessent talk about how great the economy is doing? More lies. And let's see how Trump responds.
The U.S. capital expenditures up 15% in history. When CapEx is up, jobs will follow. The One Big Beautiful Bill is an incredible, as you said, thanks to your leadership, along with Speaker Johnson, Senator Leader Thune, we had that done on July 4th, which everyone said was impossible. And the great thing about that bill, sir, for the American people, it's for industry, 100% expensing. Build your factory here. You can write it.
Friends, he's comatose part of the time and barely able to keep his eyes awake. I mean, you could not create a Saturday Night Live skit more pathetic than that. And let's take a look at, maybe he cares about education, right? Now, let's watch when the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, right, who comes from the world of performative wrestling. I know they call it professional, but I'm going to call it performative wrestling. Let's listen to Linda McMahon while we watch Donald Trump. And I think he is, so to say, down for the count.
Sir, that we are moving to return education to the states and to bring the level of education back up, making sure our students can read, are reintroducing the science of reading in schools. And going into next year,
Guys, it's like each one of these people, like as they are speaking, they keep saying his name and addressing him, and he slumps more and his eyes are like lead and he falls asleep. Now, you might say, Jen, that's just 3. Oh no, I have more. How would you like to see Pete Hegseth? Right. This is one of the most, I mean, you would think Donald would be awake for this. This is when Pete Hegseth is being confronted by the press, right? being, or I shouldn't say confronted. He feels he's under fire for possible war crimes and murder. And this is Pete Hegseth, who is throwing the admiral who works beneath him under the bus, right? There are other moments I'll show you later in the show where he says, we stand 100% behind this guy who entirely decided to do this on his own, right? This is what they're all trying to do, right? Donald threw Pete Hegseth under the bus on Air Force One, saying, oh, I don't know anything about it, but I'm sure it was perfectly fine. Pete tells me nothing was wrong. And then Pete throws the guy below him under the bus. This is not how the chain of command works. And I firmly don't believe it. But you would think that Donald Trump would be paying attention to this, would care about this. But no, this is Donald, once again, Commander-in-Z's.
Again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves and allowed them to come across the border. Cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs, we're striking the boats, we're defeating narco terrorists, and we're standing.
And you may say one thing, that drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%.
Okay, he wakes up at the end to throw out a lie. These statistics. I mean, who knows what these numbers mean? Elsewhere, when the rare moment Donald Trump was awake, he also claimed something like 200,000 people had died of drug overdoses in the United States last year. When the number is still terrible, it's 80,000, but it ain't 200,000. So the guy, I mean, barely awake. Okay, so here's the deal. There's something wrong with Donald Trump. I mean, there's so many things wrong with him. And he may have been especially exhausted yesterday on Tuesday, because Monday night he posted on Truth Social like over 100 times, not just his own. Mostly it was like reposting other people's posts. So he was obviously, stress tweeting all night, and that might have been why he was exhausted. But here's the deal. He called the meeting. He decided to have it on camera. If you're tired or not feeling well, you can postpone things. But I get the feeling that he's like this all the time. We have seen so many examples of him falling asleep on camera. God knows what he's doing when the camera is off. Now, what's particularly funny to me about this is that at the, earlier, before he starts conking out and, falling into a slumber, like Don Van Winkle, or, before that happens, he looks at the press and says, don't say that I'm not doing well. I'm doing great. So let's listen to that, because it seems particularly pointed, humorous, ironic, whatever you want to say, given what happened next. Let's watch that now.
But you always find something new, like, is he in good health? Biden was great, but is Trump in good health? I sit here, I do 4 news conferences a day. I ask questions from very intelligent lunatics, you people. And I give the right answers. There's never a scandal, there's never a problem. I give you answers that solve your little problems. You go back and you can't find anything, but you do stories about Biden was in wonderful health. The guy didn't do a news conference for 8 months. If I go one day, I had one day where I didn't do a news conference, there's something wrong with the president. You people are crazy. I'll let you know when there's something wrong. There will be someday. That's going to happen to all of us. But right now, I think I'm sharper than I was 25 years ago, but who the hell knows?
Oh, sorry, let me add this. He starts talking about how he took this cognitive test. Okay, this is at the sort of the outset of the meeting. I'll let you know when there's something wrong with me. And then he falls asleep. It's a problem. I don't care about whether Joe Biden gave a press conference. Donald Trump is the man who has access to the nuclear codes, right? Donald Trump is the man who is not firing Pete Hegseth, who is murdering people and committing war crimes. Donald Trump is the man who I will show you later engaged in an entirely racist, rant. And Donald Trump is presiding over the cruel, illegal, inhumane, and downright evil these ICE raids and separating families once again. Now, let's actually, though, get an expert here. On Midas Touch yesterday, Sanjay Gupta was the guest, and he spoke about Donald Trump's health because, as you may know, one of his doctors released a brief report, very brief, about this supposed MRI that Donald Trump got. Right? He keeps talking about how he got an MRI, and then we heard from the White House press office that it was a preventative MRI. MRIs don't actually prevent anything, right? You look to help explore, diagnose, you're looking for certain things. But I know what she meant. She meant to look to see if there was a condition where there's a problem. Now, it is not normal for all people to get just random MRIs, but there are people who are very wealthy who want to get a full body MRI just to find out if there's something going on with them. And I know there are a lot of folks poo-pooing that. Now, I've never done it, but I will tell you as a family member of someone who had cancer and who didn't get enough screenings on this kind of cancer, and then it got out of control. It wasn't this person's fault. It was the doctor saying you don't need to. I do understand the urge for folks to take a look, or somebody who had pancreatic cancer, where if they'd actually looked, they would have seen it earlier on. Now, all of this is to say it's not normal to get MRIs. It's not normal for Donald Trump to say he didn't know what part of his body was screened. So let's listen to what Sanjay Gupta has to say about this. And I think the most salient thing here, and he says it toward the end, so I want you to listen for it, is that the report the doctors give us are just for two areas of Donald Trump's body, right? The cardiovascular area, apparently, and I think his abdomen. You'll hear from Gupta. I'm not a doctor. But what we don't know is what other part of Donald's body was scanned. Was there a brain scan? Were his legs scanned because of other vascular issues? We don't know. The doctor only reported back about the stuff that sounded good. Okay, let's take a listen to that.
Well, Ben, I had a chance to speak to a lot of radiology colleagues at the best academic institutions in the country over the last 24 hours because, I want to make sure that we're getting the very best expertise across specialties for Midas and Midas Health. No one is aware of getting an MRI of the torso, which is what the results that were summarized in the physician's note that Carolyn Levitt read out. It doesn't exist. They had justified getting an MRI of the torso for primary.
I'm sorry, it's Vin Gupta. I apologize.
Screening of some sort of medical process because he's older. And that doesn't exist. I'm not aware, my colleagues across the spectrum in radiology are not aware of that type of screening process. You just don't do it. And I think the fact that they reported only the cardiovascular and abdominal findings is odd. Why? Did he get a full body MRI because that's in vogue amongst a certain subsegment of society and they just reported the cardiac and the abdominal findings? Okay. Then why? Did they leave out everything else? Did they just get a torso MRI? Why? There is no clinical guideline that exists. And again, these are the most credentialed radiologists in the country. I challenge anybody to find a group of folks that is more credentialed and more accomplished and knows, what to do and when to do MRIs than the folks I've spoken with. No one is aware of any type of screening guideline to say, yes, as you age, get an MRI of the heart and of your abdomen. So the whole thing is just unusual. And the fact that they're drawing attention to it and that he's teased it, now drawing more attention to it, it doesn't make any sense. I think they're creating more problems for themselves than they're actually solving. This is all his own creation and his team's creation, letting things out drip, drip, drip. without any obvious alignment with clinical guidelines. And, his supporters, I've gotten some critiques from his supporters on social, saying, well, gosh, he's pointing to any number of data points saying, well, this all makes sense. From a medical standpoint, none of this comports, and that's clear. MRIs are not used as primary screening tools, Ben, as we've talked about. But the fact that they just chose to focus on the heart and the abdominal findings honestly makes no sense. And this has been vetted across the spectrum with external experts as well. So again, they're creating more problems for themselves, if you ask me, and creating more questions to be answered than they're actually solving.
Okay. So, the MRI report read out by Carolyn Levitt doesn't clear up what's going on with Donald Trump's health. The fact that he fell asleep numerous times during his own press conference doesn't bode well for either his planning skills to have a meeting when he's that exhausted, or for his medical condition, because, of course, he has the best doctors in the world. If he was actually feeling sleepy, you think that they could have given him something to pep him up temporarily. I don't know, but this doesn't look great for him. Now, I want to return to what I just mentioned about Pete Hegseth. On Monday, we went through in great detail what the drone attacks on the ships in the Caribbean and in the Pacific. We talked about that generally and specifically about the first attack ordered by Pete Hegseth on a ship in the Caribbean on September 2nd. And we spoke about the question of whether it constituted murder or a war crime or both. But the bottom line is, and you might want to watch that show if you want to be updated on it, because the show kind of breaks it down into pieces. Regardless of how you categorize it, there's no way out here. What absolutely happened, based on the facts reported out by the Washington Post and before that by The Intercept, and admitted finally at one point by Hegseth, although they keep changing their stories, points to the fact that this was a crime which is either in the courts of law or the tribunals of military justice, a court-martial, punishable by as much as death. This is not anything that is acceptable, right? And the most important thing to remember is we don't have to concede that there actually is a war or an armed conflict going on with these supposed narco-terrorists when we don't know who is even on the boats. But again, even if we concede that somehow Donald Trump would be able to convince a court that this qualified as an armed conflict with a non-state actor, so a non-international conflict, and therefore it was justifiable for the first strike on this boat. We've talked about how there's no chance that the second strike on the boat designed to kill the two men clinging to this smoldering ruin for their lives. There's no way that's lawful, right? And that is, again, a war crime. Now, it is murder, but it is under the law, again, if you accept that first premise, war crime. So we've talked about this, and we have, I have not found any credible voice that has supported this. All I have seen is the people inside the administration are supporting it, but if Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth thought this was perfectly fine, they wouldn't be trying to pass the buck. Okay, let's look now at former Judge Andrew Napolitano, who speaks about this. This is someone on the conservative side who worked with Pete Hegseth at Fox News. Let's hear from him.
No pleasure to say what I'm about to say, because I worked with Pete Hegseth for 7 or 8 years at Fox News. This is an act of a war crime, ordering survivors who the law requires be rescued instead to be murdered. There's absolutely no legal basis for it. Everybody along the line who did it, from the Secretary of Defense to the Admiral to the people who actually pulled the trigger, should be prosecuted for a war crime for killing these two people.
And who would?
You heard that, right? I just want you to listen to that last part. Okay? So you're not mistaken here.
Everybody along the line who did it, from the Secretary of Defense to the Admiral to the people who actually pulled the trigger, should be prosecuted for a war crime for killing these two people.
And who would?
You heard it. This is not going away. It's just not. Okay? It goes beyond that, right? We have, well, just trust me when I say I don't need to throw up example after example of this. Okay, what I want to now talk to you about is something else I alluded to, which was Donald Trump is sleeping through this presidency. Even if he is awake, he has no moral compass and no care in the world for anyone but himself. And so I want to share with you something that I saw yesterday that upset me so greatly that I'm almost speechless. I saw it first put out by Zoran Mandami in a Blue Sky post about a father and son, a 6-year-old son who had been taken into custody by ICE in one of these raids, separated, and now the father can't find his 6-year-old son. So I wanted to find for you reporting on that because I wanted to also know more. So let me share that with you. Okay, this is, let's just go ahead and let me just play this for you. Here we go.
A father from Queens and his 6-year-old son were detained by federal agents at an immigration hearing. Tonight, Alan Devlin spoke with advocates who say the man was separated from his child and he doesn't know where he is.
The father does not know where his son is. He has not been told where his son is.
A Chinese father and son from Astoria, Queens, allegedly separated in the midst of ICE detention following a scheduled immigration hearing at 26 Federal Plaza. Community advocates say Faye and his 6-year-old son Yao Xin, whose last names are being withheld at their request, were both detained on November 26th.
They basically have kidnapped his son.
Community advocate Jenny Spector has been working with the family to help them legally obtain citizenship since this summer and spoke with Faye from the detention center in Orange County where she says he's currently being held.
He was trying to put, I think, on a brave face, but he was tearful during times during that we met because he doesn't know where his son is and they're not telling him.
On Tuesday, Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani posted on social media about the family who reside in his Queens district saying, quote, 6-year-old Yao Xin had just enrolled in 1st grade at an elementary school in Astoria. Now he's in custody alone. ICE won't say where. This cruelty serves no one.
It's hitting our neighbors. It's hitting our community really hard.
The woman looking to replace the mayor-elect in District 36 also vocalizing she believes the family's detainment impacts the entire community.
To see their classmates disappear overnight is something that no parent wants to explain to their kid why this is happening.
Alan Devlin, CBS News, New York.
Okay, hold on one second. There's a little bit of I just want to follow up because there's a response from the government. First, I just want to say it wasn't an ICE raid. I mean, ICE came in while he was in an immigration hearing and took them away. Also, the father is still in custody, but just separated from his son. Let's listen to what the government's excuse is for this. Even just absolutely definition of cruelty and evil. Okay, let me just play this. Sorry.
News, New York.
Now, the Department of Homeland Security says Faye and his son were given a lawful order of removal as a family unit, but they say that he refused to board a plane, was acting disruptive and aggressive, and endangering his child's well-being. DHS says Faye had the right to depart this country as a family and chose not to comply, adding, quote, ICE does not separate families. This is consistent with past administrations' immigration enforcement. Parents are asked if they want to be removed with their children, or ICE will place the children with a safe person the parent designates.
Guys, that's not what happened. That is not what happened. I mean, I swear to you, I was so upset about this yesterday that I wanted to board a plane and have all of us, if we only knew where this kid was, and the father, I don't even know what we can do. I don't know. But please share this story. Please share that. I'm going to, let me see if I can drop in the chat. 1 second. I am going to drop in the chat for you the full story from CBS News. And you can share that with everybody you know. The outrage, the evil is palpable. And they're not the only family. I'm not saying that, but this will resonate. I know it does with you. This has to be stopped. Now, all of this is happening, but let's check in on the economy, because they can lie and you might not know what's really going on, but everybody knows what's happening in their paycheck, how far it's going at the store, the debts they have, the bills they have to pay. And as you know, the Trump administration is not putting out numbers regularly, but ADP, the company that puts out a lot of paychecks, the payroll company that manages paychecks for many private businesses, is putting out numbers that experts from which they can extrapolate. And so we have some news from CNBC here about jobs, and they're not good.
Yeah, a big miss on the ADP payrolls. The private payroll company saying private payroll shed 32,000 workers in November. That's the fourth negative number in the past 6 months for this series. Take a look here. The estimate was for 40,000, so the street was off on this one. And how did you get there? Well, goods producing shed 19,000 workers, service producing shedding 13,000 workers. But the big story here, and I'll show you more detail on this, is what's happening with small business, down 120,000. Medium and large business doing okay, up 51 and 39,000 respectively. But take a look at.
So this is what's critical for you to know. During the financial crisis, for example, and the economy collapses after 2008, 2009, 2010, and so on, the bailouts didn't just help the big banks. It actually helped giant businesses. And I don't need to get into the complexity of this, but small businesses suffered. So the separation, the inequality story and reality that we have in terms of the rich get richer, the human beings and the families, and the rest of us have less, that separation, that gap is also happening in the business world. They have more political power, they have more cushions, and to weather these storms, and they have more ability to get bailouts, private funding, or government funding when they need it. But and I should say not but. And so Donald Trump is hurting small businesses, and when small businesses are hurt, so are small towns and communities, and so on. So it's just infuriating. Let's continue.
At this chart here, virtually all of the job losses have come from small business, which has been negative in 6 of 7 months since April. Without those losses, ADP numbers would actually be positive, but you can't get rid of, or you can't exclude small business. And then you look at it by sector. Well, we've seen those two sectors do it. Education, health services, leisure, hospitality leading the way, but manufacturing down, information down, and professional business services down by 26,000. Also, another sign of weakness in the job market. Job stayers, their wages up 4.4. That's down the 10th from the prior month. And job changers, that was a big number, or had been. That's down 0.4 of a point to 6.3%. So, Joe, at least according to ADP, additional weakness in the job market, and small business getting hammered. And there is some information that some of this may be coming from being hammered by the tariffs.
Oh, why? Because small businesses couldn't plan ahead the same way big businesses could when Donald Trump announced this, right? Okay, back in the summer and so on. So there we have that. Now, the show is about to close, and I want to premiere some new Crazy Town music because, oh boy, we have a crazy town. Are you ready? That's one option, option one. And here's another crazy town. I like them both. Thank you so much, Jason. And our crazy town comes from that same Donald Trump press conference. Now, I just want to make clear for you, yesterday was Tuesday, December 2nd. Today is Wednesday, December 3rd. So this was a Tuesday, and Donald Trump said the following.
And I just want to wish everybody a great holiday. We've I think, done a great job with the White House, bringing the White House back. You see the Palm Court that was redone.
Yeah, well, wish everybody a happy holiday weekend. It was Tuesday. In fairness, though, guys, I should be fair. He probably was saying welcoming people back from the weekend. But still, it's Tuesday. Okay, guys. That's all I got for you today. I want to say that tomorrow is my birthday. Shh, don't ask which one. And there's nothing I would like more for my birthday than subscribers. Now, remember, it's free to subscribe. You just have to click that button and become a subscriber to the show. It would be my dream that for my birthday month, we get us to 15,000 subscribers. Please, if you don't watch, if you don't watch, goodbye. You're not even here. If you're not a subscriber, this would be your time. Thank you so much, guys. Have a beautiful Wednesday, and I will see you on my birthday. And maybe I'll have cake with you for breakfast. I think that is a great, great idea.
It never would have happened.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show.